Okay, so tell us a little bit about who you are.
Me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Moses Masoi. I come from Kenya. I'm the Executive Director of Humanitarians Kenyan chapter, and I spearhead the expeditions there and organize and supervise projects that we have over there in Kenya.
And how long have you been doing this?
Roughly 4 years and counting.
Okay. So you've seen a lot of changes take place in Kenya or in the communities that we work in over the past few years. What has made the biggest impression on you about how this is changing your community?
I think the biggest change that I can see coming to the community is the education of the students that we have in our sponsorship program. Education always is the catalyst of any positive change in any society and in any tribe or anywhere in the world. And I see that as a positive direction that these families are embracing and taking part on. And also, education also include the training centers that we have for women. That we already have 2 functional training centers, one in Bomet and one in Kareta. These are adult literacy centers, which we are training women how to sew and other life skills that they would not have got because most of them did not go to school. And this is all part of education, and education brings positive changes anywhere in the world. So that is one of the biggest things that I see as has been of great impact that can be really seen. And also of the business boxes that we do. We've had families that started from earning zero income in a month, and we are now seeing them even on the level of earning up to $200 per month, and some earning less depending on where they are, and some even earning more than that. With the chicken, the goats, the garden towers, and the cows we provided for them has brought a whole new chapter to their lives, one that they did not have before, and one that we are happy to say that they have been good custodians of the projects we've bestowed upon them. And you can see the whole difference, the nutrition of the babies, how well dressed they are, how happy they are, and you can see the whole family radiates love and joy in them just because of that project that has been put in their family. So yeah, I think those 3 things have been some of those that have had the biggest impacts on the family livelihoods, and also not forgetting the keeping days, the girls in school through the provision of sanitary towels, which has helped a lot in absenteeism for girls, school-going girls, both in primary school and in high school. And these have seen improved grades for girls and improved performance in both academic and extracurricular activities.
So when we started 4 years ago, did you anticipate that this is how big it would have gotten? Is this what you saw happening?
Well, I'm a visionary person, and if given the right resources, I would have envisioned us further than this. But the steps we've taken are way further than I expected with the little that we had and the little capacity we had money-wise and donation-wise. And I've seen things that I did not anticipate could have happened at this time. We have 2 active garden garden towers that are in almost many families that we visit, fully built training centers for women that we're going to equip, and many things that the schools that we have children in. We have almost 4 or 5 students graduating this year that we started from them from the 8th grade and some from the first year of high school. The general view of the families when we visit them that we've provided the business boxes to is something that you don't have the right words to express how much this has been of immense change to them and also to the society that they live in. I've seen women in Bomet do garden towers by themselves and even training others. Same women doing the same thing in Kareta, taking the initiative of even training others on how they are doing this, how using the hop sacks to make their meals faster and using less fuel, and also the performance of the students that we are sponsoring. We've seen gradual improvement. We've had them before with lower grades because of the disappointments, knowing that they probably were not going to finish school because of financial issues. But since we were able to sponsor their education, we've seen gradual improvement in their performance academically. So the far we've come when we started with business boxes, now we are at garden towers, and now we have training centers. We are doing more kids than we have done before. We have more kids in school today. We have more families that have had our hand in one way or the other, either through chicken, either through goats, or either through the garden towers. These are some of the things that I did not anticipate to have happened in such a short time of 4 years. But I see that this is just the beginning, and I believe that the next years to come would see tremendous expansion in where we can reach, because we intend to reach to other regions, Kisii, Kajiado, and whichever regions that we can be able to reach and offer a helping hand to families and to needy children going to school, and also needy families in those societies.
So 100 Humanitarians International likes to go into communities and help build the infrastructure and build a stewardship for that community. And then we want to teach them self-reliance so that we can move into mentoring and training versus setting up all of these systems and the business box for families and things like that. And so if you were to, because you're a visionary, if you were to share your vision for what you want to have happen on the Masai Mara, which is your community, what you want to see done over the next 3 to 5 years, what would that be?
Honestly speaking, we've done already things that have been in line with the visions and the objectives of this organization from the word go. And we've been lucky enough to have very supportive people, both the donors from America and other parts of the world. And we've also had a very supportive Kenyan team that have gone out of their way to see these communities change. It's something drives them to see these communities better and having a good life. And also we've had a very wonderful reception from the communities that we've been working with. They have received us with joy and open hands, and whatever little we've been able to do to them, they have received with pride and took them as theirs. I believe that this has been like a family working together, and that is the most beautiful thing, because we don't work like strangers or like tourists. We are like a family that are working together towards a common goal, which is seeing those families live a better life, seeing those children finish school and perform well. But because I don't want to go into details into that, I really would wish and hope that we can finish up with the building of the cultural center in Masai Mara. It's one of the pillars and like the foundation of everything we're doing in Kenya, because we want to be able to teach something new to the people, but also preserving their culture and their way of life, not trying to erode them and not trying to wash away what they believe in and what they know, but introducing alternative ways and things to do, ways of doing things better, and in a way that can enable them financially and also socially to be better people and better versions of themselves, which includes adult literacy, the Days for Girls, the reconciliation program between girls and families that they were running away from early marriages and FGM, and also as a community meeting hub where all the social practices that were not being able to be performed right now because of the land demarcation and how the Maasai have been dispersed into private lands, that we can all have a common place to call home, a common place to come together to celebrate our heritage, our culture, and also to learn new ways, and because it's an exchange of ideas, an exchange of cultures, an exchange of skills that the people can learn from groups visiting, and they can also teach the groups visiting stuff. And it's all to the one goal of reaching the goal of having them able to sustain themselves financially, to run the projects, and to be able to teach that to the future generation, and even to teach to the other families. Like, when you get something, make good use of it, and be able to learn and keep the skills so that you can teach your neighbor, and it can go on and so forth throughout the community.
So, what do you see are the biggest challenges facing the Maasai today?
The Maasai, like any other community, are facing challenges which are brought about by development, westernization, and the impact of tourism, both local and international tourism, and also the interaction with other tribes. And I think the biggest thing that the Maasai are losing is their pride. And the pride of the Maasai involved two main things, which I believe were the main thing that identified someone as Maasai. One is their culture, which is gradually being eroded by education, Christianity, interaction with other communities, industrialization, and the whole concept of, I would say, being westernized, maybe. And gradually the Maasai are losing their way of living, the way they used to eat, their mode of dressing, their cultural practices. They are losing that, and they are adapting new cultures either from the neighboring tribes or either from Western lives that they watch on TVs, that they read on magazines, and that they can also learn from schools. And they're also picking up and keeping concepts they learn from religious practices like churches and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that I see is being lost in our Maasai area. The other thing the Maasai are losing is their cows. Any man in the Maasai community would take pride in having as many cows as he could possibly have. But with the demarcation of the land, people have got very small portions of land that cannot sustain many cows that the Maasai took pride in having. So right now they are being limited to having very few cows, and they can no longer use their land because most of the land has been preserved for conservancies, and the other of the land is used for the national reserve, which they are not allowed to graze their cows in anymore. So with that coming, I mean, it's up to the Maasai to learn how to adapt to those changes, either to minimize the amount of cows they have, but learn to breed their cows to have a better breed of cows that provide a higher yield of milk, or even weight if it was to be sold to the market or to be used for food. And also to learn what aspects of the Maasai tradition to keep and what aspects of the Maasai culture and traditions to let go as we progress into the future. So I mean, those two things I feel are the biggest threat to the Maasai culture and the Maasai tradition and the community itself.
And so, with the building of the cultural center, what can we do to preserve that culture? What are the things that we can do as part of the cultural center that will really make an impact and make a difference in making sure that the Maasai moving forward have those opportunities, that your children and your grandchildren will know and understand what it means to be a Maasai because of this cultural center?
I mean, the way the world is going right now, and the way forward is digital. And I believe the only way we can do right now is collect as many stories as possible from the elders, to collect artifacts, original Maasai artifacts, original Maasai things that you cannot find elsewhere, to record family ancestry, and put all those in an online portal that any Maasai anywhere in the world can access, and especially at the cultural center. That during free time, when kids need to learn about their tradition, the games that kids played, the kind of stories they were being told about heroism, about raids, about legends, they can still get that online. I've seen many people writing the same stories in books and stuff, but let's face it, in the coming years, everyone would want to read their book on the phone or on a computer or something. That's where we're heading. And as we adapt those changes, we must ensure that those changes have us in them. That as the world moves into a digital era, the Maasai will be part of that digital era, either with their stories written, with their stories told, with their artifacts there, and with their practices and traditions preserved in a way that children that will come 10 or 20 or 30 years to come, or even in the next generations, can still retrieve those information, can still go back and know about them. Because I believe that there will come a time, even in the future, that there will be conflicts. And we've always had our own conflict resolution measures that we still practice them up to now. And as much as there are courts and there are other legal measures of solving conflicts, to solve any Maasai conflicts, you always have to go back to the books or go back to the tradition or something like, this is how this was being solved and this is how this matter is solved traditionally. And I believe that there will come a time when someone will want to go back to the books, go back to the computer and search for these things. And like, hey, I went back and I searched and this is what I found out. This is what the Maasai used to do. This is how we believe this can be resolved, or how this can be solved. So I believe that what I would really envision, what I would love to see, even when I'm dead and I'm looking down on my great-grandchildren and other people living in my society, that they can go to their little computers or whatever they'll be using at that time and still be able to trace their heritage, trace their culture, trace their practices, and be proud of them. Something that can still light up the spark in their hearts that shows them that they are Maasai and they believed in these practices and this is what they used to do, even if it's different right now.
How is your life different than even your father's in one generation?
Well, my life was not so different from my father's, but it was different in many aspects because I did not find the practice of cow riding, where if you needed wealth, you had to go to another community, kill someone, or kill a whole community to get your cows and sheep and goats. I think that's the only aspect I did not get of my parents, but all the other practices that were being practiced traditionally, I had to take part in most of them, unless some that were not allowed because of going to school. And those are things that my children would never experience, or even generations a few years younger than me did not experience and would never experience, which is a shame because I really wish that they went through those things. Those are things that cannot be narrated and cannot even be expressed fully in a book or in any digital format. Those are things that can only give you the pride if you went through them and you understood them. But it's the least we can do for our children and even great grandchildren and the people that come after us, is that even if you do not experience this, this is how the Maasai lived. I look forward to movies being created of the Maasai cultures, just like Disney did with The Lion King, and they did a whole remodeling of the thing that made it even more realistic and even more lively. I look forward to maybe in the coming years, a whole thing can be played or a movie created of the Maasai practices, the lion hunting, the raids, the practices, and can all be relived either using technology or whatever things that people will be using at that time. But when someone watches them, can actually almost feel like this is happening and this is how the real thing was being done. So I did not experience everything that my parents did, and my children will not experience anything that I did. But I try as much as possible to ensure that my kids learn that they are Maasai, and I try and I take every opportunity that's available to me to teach them a thing or a few. And I hope that in the future we can have a whole thing that they can go to and learn everything they want to learn about Maasai.
Okay. The cultural center is called the Empernot Cultural Center. And so what does the word Empernot mean to you?
Empanat in the Maasai term means a place where people can never move. It's like a living place that people will never move out from. Like in the Maasai tradition, we used to build temporary homes, which we would live for a certain period, and then when grass got scarce and water was scarce too, we'd move to another area and so forth and so forth. But then there came a time when the people built Emparnat, which is a village that they would live in for many years, and they would only be moving from one spot to the other in the same area. Like they would be shifting houses since they could. Sometimes the houses get old, they get eaten by the termites and they start bending, so they just move to around that area. It's an Emparnat. It's a place where people live, and a place that people live forever, and that the love and the existence and the social life continues in that area for ages and ages. And the whole essence of the Emparnat Cultural Center is that as much as the Maasai people are living in different parts of the Maasai Mara, the Emparnat Cultural Center is there that they can always live there socially, and they can always come there to relive their practices there, to do whatever congregation they want to do there, and it's something that's there to stay even after I go and many other people go that will be after me. The Emparnat Cultural Center will be there to stay. It will be for use of the community and the people living there for years and years and years to come.